Have you ever looked at a man, intelligent, self-aware, emotionally mature, and wondered, why is he still single? Not broken, not desperate, just alone. Let me tell you something that will shift your entire perception. Being single is not a curse for intelligent men. It's a consequence. And it's time we talk about the truth behind it. The most misunderstood thing about intelligent men is this. People assume they're single because something is missing in them. Maybe emotional availability, maybe confidence, maybe the ability to connect. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The intelligent man, the deep thinking man, the self-aware man, he knows exactly how to love. In fact, he probably loves in a way most people can't even comprehend. He feels deeply, listens carefully, and loves with intensity that doesn't scream, but whispers in quiet consistency. He's not afraid of commitment. He's not afraid of vulnerability. He's afraid of something much more dangerous, settling for something less than he deserves, settling for someone who does not see him, settling for surface-level affection when he craves soul-level intimacy. You see, intelligence in a man doesn't only mean books, careers, or credentials. It's emotional intelligence. It's the capacity to observe patterns, to detect inauthenticity, to feel energies shift in a room. It's his ability to analyze not just actions, but intentions. And that sharp perception often becomes both his strength and his curse. Because while others may rush into relationships to avoid loneliness, the intelligent man knows that the wrong connection is far more isolating than being alone. He has likely experienced conversations that go nowhere, laughter that feels rehearsed, affection that feels transactional, and relationships where he had to dim his light just to be understood. He's done pretending that shallow waters are deep. He's done investing where the return is emotional bankruptcy. He doesn't want to fix someone. He doesn't want to be someone's project, nor does he want to save anyone from their own unresolved traumas. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's already whole. People misunderstand his solitude. They confuse his standards with arrogance, his independence with aloofness, and his lack of urgency with indifference. But the truth is, this man is not lonely. He's selective because he's spent too long learning himself, building himself, healing himself, to throw it all away for someone who only knows how to love him halfway. And make no mistake, he does crave love. He does want intimacy, but only the kind that is rich in depth, in truth, in spiritual alignment. He longs for connection that is both passionate and peaceful, one that feels like fire and stillness in the same breath. He needs someone who can sit in silence without reaching for her phone, someone who sees his quietness not as withdrawal, but as presence, someone who asks, "How are you really?" and listens like the answer matters. This is why he refuses to settle, because he understands the weight of what he brings into a relationship. His loyalty is not ordinary. His commitment is not performative. His presence is a safe haven, and his love, when he gives it fully, is both rare and restorative. But he knows that offering this to the wrong person can destroy him. That's why he waits. Not because he's waiting for someone perfect, but because he's waiting for someone real, someone emotionally mature, someone who values what he values, authenticity, growth, purpose, someone who doesn't see his depth as too much, but as exactly right. So, while the world may judge him, question him, even pressure him, he remains rooted in his truth. He would rather walk alone in alignment than walk with someone who pulls him out of character. He has no desire to play dating games, to chase temporary excitement, or to indulge in the kind of love that only looks good in photos. He wants substance. A woman who is both soft and strong, feminine and grounded, mysterious but emotionally available. A woman who doesn't fear depth, who doesn't run from emotional intensity, and who doesn't shrink when he expresses his truth. Because when he gives his heart, it's not just a moment. It's an entire lifetime of devotion, loyalty, emotional presence, and unwavering support. And he knows not everyone is capable of receiving that. There is something profoundly different about how an intelligent man experiences people. While others are distracted by words, appearances, and gestures, he listens to the silence in between. The pauses, the hesitation, the tension behind the smile. He doesn't just hear what is said, he hears what is not being said. In conversations, he watches for the moment someone's tone breaks away from their message. He senses contradiction long before it's confessed. And that's what makes him so emotionally guarded. Not because he's closed, but because he's observant, hyper-aware, cautious with his peace. He doesn't wait for the storm to arrive before seeking shelter. He notices the shift in wind long before the clouds darken. People often think he's cold, over-analytical, or distant, but that's only because they don't understand the sharpness of his perception. He notices when someone suddenly becomes too available, when their attention starts feeling more like obligation than desire. He sees when compliments turn into rehearsed validation, when messages lose their natural warmth. He detects manipulation wrapped in sweet words, senses competition in subtle digs, and reads insecurities behind curated perfection. He catches the inconsistencies, how someone says they want honesty but avoids accountability, how they speak of peace yet live in chaos. He doesn't need proof of betrayal in action. He often feels it before it arrives. And it's this sensitivity, this intuitive radar that makes him retreat before the damage is done. He has learned that silence often speaks louder than explanations. A sudden pause in effort, a change in eye contact, a delayed response to things that once excited. These are the signs that tell him more than paragraphs ever could. He doesn't need confrontation, he needs alignment. He doesn't argue with energies that clearly don't feel safe anymore. He's not interested in making someone explain what their behavior has already confessed. He sees the red flag when someone uses love as a tool to control, when freedom is repackaged as rebellion, when loyalty is treated as possession. He knows that love should never feel like confusion disguised as passion. There are moments when he walks away, not because something dramatic happened, but because everything subtle did, because the silence between the messages grew louder than the words themselves, because the rhythm between two souls fell out of sync, because he noticed the emotional distance long before it turned into physical absence. And he's not one to cling to potential. He doesn't romanticize what could be when reality is showing him what is. He has no interest in illusions. He has burned himself in that fire before. He would rather leave quietly with his dignity than stay and lose himself trying to convince someone of his worth. This is the man who knows how much damage silence can carry. He knows how the things unsaid in a relationship begin to pile up like emotional debris, how avoidance becomes resentment, how pretending leads to disconnection. That's why he pays attention from the beginning. He listens not just to stories, but to patterns. He remembers what you say when you're tired, angry, vulnerable, because in those moments, the mask slips and the truth comes out. He sees when affection is inconsistent, when effort is calculated, when emotional openness is performed instead of lived. And while many may call him cynical, he simply calls it discernment, because he has known the cost of ignoring his intuition. He has spent time in spaces where he had to beg for the bare minimum, where his peace was constantly disturbed and his presence constantly questioned. So now, when he senses the same cycles beginning to form, he simply chooses silence over war, distance over desperation, observation over obsession, because in the quiet, he sees everything. An intelligent man lives in a world that often praises loudness, performance, and validation from the outside. But he operates from a completely different frequency, one that is internal, silent, steady. While others chase approval, likes, claps, and fleeting admiration, he chases something far more sacred. Peace, that unshakable stillness in the soul that isn't dependent on who's watching, who's responding, or who's impressed. He has no desire to be everyone's favorite, no obsession with being the most followed, the most liked, or the most desired. His self-worth doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from being centered. There's a reason he walks away from drama even when he could win. There's a reason he doesn't argue to prove a point, doesn't post to impress, and doesn't show up just to be seen. It's not because he lacks confidence. It's because he has reached a point in his life where peace is more precious than attention. He's no longer available for noise. He's no longer seduced by the need to be relevant in every room. He doesn't crave the spotlight because he's already lit from within. And in this world of overstimulation where everyone wants to be seen, he finds power in being private, intentional, unseen. He used to be the man who gave everything, his time, energy, presence, to people who only saw him as a moment. People who drained him, misunderstood him, used him to fill their emptiness, but never stayed to water his soul. And that season of giving too much to people who gave too little left scars. So now he protects his peace like a sacred ritual. He doesn't open the doors to his life easily. He doesn't allow access to his vulnerability unless it is safe, unless it is mutual, unless it is spiritually aligned. He has learned the hard way that not everyone deserves proximity, that not everyone who smiles wants the best for him, that sometimes popularity is nothing more than polished chaos. So while others might wonder why he keeps his circle small, why he disappears often, or why he doesn't engage in every social wave, he simply chooses not to explain. He knows what it costs to lose yourself in the noise of everyone else's expectations. He knows how quickly identity can be swallowed by the need to be accepted. He knows how easily peace is replaced with anxiety when you're constantly trying to meet a version of yourself that's more digestible to the world. And so he refuses, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. He chooses slow mornings over chaotic relationships. He chooses genuine laughter over forced conversations. He chooses real moments over curated ones. His life is not a performance. His worth is not a marketing strategy. He doesn't need to post his piece to prove he has it. He doesn't need to showcase his relationship to validate its depth. He doesn't need applause to believe he's valuable. He simply needs alignment with himself, his purpose, and his energy. That's it. Because when a man reaches a place where his nervous system is regulated, where he can be alone without feeling empty, where he can sit with his own thoughts and not run from them, that's a man who's not looking to be liked. That's a man who's looking to live. People often try to pull him back into the cycle, tempt him with flattery, attention, or emotional chaos disguised as passion, but he's no longer attracted to anything that costs his peace. He doesn't care how beautiful she is, how powerful the connection feels, or how magical the moment looks from the outside. If it disturbs his inner harmony, if it triggers his anxiety, if it brings back the chaos he spent years healing from, he will walk away with no explanations. Because popularity fades, applause dies down, the crowd moves on, but peace, that quiet, grounded internal clarity, stays when everything else breaks. An emotionally fluent man is a rarity in a world that teaches men to be stoic, hard, and silent. He doesn't run from his feelings. He respects them. He doesn't suppress his emotions. He understands them. And most importantly, he doesn't fear emotional intimacy. He seeks it, not as a weakness, but as a strength. This man knows how to name what he feels. He can look at you and say, "This made me feel unseen." He can sit with discomfort without deflecting. He doesn't use silence to punish nor aggression to control. He knows that real masculinity includes softness, awareness, empathy, and deep emotional literacy. But ironically, it's this very fluency that often drives people away, not because he's too much, but because most have never been taught how to handle depth without drowning in it. He will never be the man who sugarcoats his boundaries to protect someone's comfort. He will never pretend he's fine when he's emotionally bleeding inside. He doesn't play emotional hide and seek. He doesn't speak in mixed signals or emotionally gaslight to gain control. He speaks from presence, from the soul, and he expects the same in return. But this level of openness demands a level of maturity that not everyone possesses. Most people are so used to emotional games, avoidance, and manipulation that when someone speaks with clarity and truth, they don't know how to receive it. They feel exposed, disarmed, even vulnerable. And that vulnerability, rather than drawing them closer, pushes them into defense. This man is not interested in shallow connection. He's not interested in conversations that avoid the core. He wants to know what keeps you awake at night. He wants to understand your fears, not judge them. He wants to explore your trauma, not exploit it. But that kind of presence, that level of care, it requires both people to show up naked, emotionally speaking, and most aren't ready for that. They're used to hiding behind filters, roles, and emotional walls. They're more comfortable being desired for their image than being known for their truth. So when he asks a real question, when he holds space without rushing to fix, when he looks you in the eyes and says, "I want to understand, not react," it doesn't feel familiar. It feels terrifying. He's fluent in apologies, but not in performance. He knows when he's hurt someone and owns it. He knows how to express anger without violence, sadness without shame, love without dependency. But many confuse his honesty with intensity, his clarity with confrontation, his depth with demand. They think he's trying to control when all he's doing is expressing. They think he's overthinking when really he's just present enough to feel. And for many, that kind of presence is foreign because it's easy to fall for a man who pretends not to care. It's harder to stand in front of one who actually does, who actually listens, who actually wants to know the real you, not just the version you've trained the world to applaud. So people leave. Not because he failed, but because his emotional fluency reveals their emotional illiteracy. He becomes the mirror they weren't ready to look into. His presence brings up everything they've buried. And while part of him understands that, part of him also aches, because all he wants is to love and be loved in return, not on the surface, not in fragments, but fully, emotionally, spiritually. Yet again and again, he's met with people who say they want truth, but can't handle the weight of it, who say they want honesty, but aren't ready to be seen, who say they want connection, but disappear when it no longer feels easy. And so he retreats. Not because he doesn't want love, but because he can no longer bleed for people who flinch every time he shows his heart. He's seen the world dressed in filters, heard love spoken in rehearsed lines, and watched people perform who they think they need to be just to be accepted. But he's long stopped being seduced by the show. Image doesn't impress him anymore. He's not interested in how well you curate your online life, how many heads turn when you enter a room, or how flawless your aesthetic appears. He's interested in something far more rare, something deeper than how the world sees you. He wants the unedited version of your soul, the messy, real, contradictory parts. The pieces you hide when you're scared, when you're insecure, when no one's looking, because he knows that true beauty isn't broadcast, it's felt. And the ones who carry it don't need to announce it. They live it quietly, sincerely, without a need for applause. The intelligent man has encountered many who shine on the surface but crumble under pressure. He has learned that charisma without character is just charm, that confidence without humility is just noise, and that success without integrity is just a costume. So now, when he meets someone, he listens closely, not to how loudly they speak, but to what their silence reveals. He watches for emotional congruence, for values in action, not words. He notices when someone changes depending on who's around, when opinions shift with convenience, when authenticity is sacrificed at the altar of likability. And those moments speak volumes to him, because he doesn't care how flawless someone looks in public if they are emotionally chaotic in private. He has outgrown the need for trophies. He's searching for truth. He's the kind of man who finds more beauty in your honesty than in your perfection. Tell him what hurt you. Show him the scars you're still learning to accept. Let your voice tremble when you speak your truth. He won't flinch. He won't judge. If anything, he'll lean in closer, because realness to him is not weakness, it's sacred. Vulnerability is not something to hide, it's something to honor. He doesn't want someone who has it all figured out. He wants someone who's figuring it out and has the courage to admit it, because he knows the difference between a performance and presence. And presence, that raw, grounded, self-aware energy, is what draws him in, what keeps him close, what makes him open. He has seen enough artificial to last a lifetime. He has walked through relationships where love was a transaction, where attention was currency, where authenticity was sacrificed for social appeal. And it nearly destroyed him. It taught him that popularity is not intimacy, that being wanted isn't the same as being understood, and that being admired by the world means nothing if you can't be real with just one person. So now he approaches love like a sacred ritual. He peels back layers slowly. He listens not to impress, but to understand. He asks questions not to fill silence, but to hear your essence. He's not looking for the perfect face, the perfect background, the perfect storyline. He's looking for alignment, for intention, for someone whose soul whispers the same language as his. The truth is, many don't understand what he sees. They wonder why he walks away from the loudest voices, the most polished smiles, the most picture-perfect options. But he knows that not everything that shines is gold, and not everything that's quiet is weak. He has learned to feel people beyond the surface, to sense when someone is performing love instead of being love, when connection is convenience rather than depth. And in a world addicted to attention, a woman who is real, raw, grounded, and emotionally self-aware is rare. That's what he searches for. Not the highlight reel, not the illusion of perfection, but the soft, steady flame of someone who knows who she is beneath it all. There's a sacred seriousness to the way he loves. Not desperate, not rushed, but deeply intentional. He doesn't date to pass time, to fill space, or to escape loneliness. His solitude is rich enough, full enough, meaningful enough. He doesn't need someone to complete his evenings. He needs someone who complements his becoming. For him, relationships are not playgrounds. They are mirrors. They are sanctuaries. They are crucibles where truth is revealed, wounds are touched, and souls are challenged to grow. When he chooses to invest emotionally, mentally, spiritually, he is not looking for a season, a spark, or a distraction. He's looking for evolution, a union that stretches him, a connection that sharpens him. A woman who challenges him not through conflict, but through depth. Someone who brings substance to his silence and fire to his vision. He has seen too much surface-level romance, the kind where people chase butterflies and call it chemistry, the kind where partners bond over temporary highs, common interests, physical compatibility, but never explore the depths beneath. That kind of love doesn't interest him because he knows it doesn't last. He's lived through the kind of passion that burns fast and dies young. He's watched connections fall apart when real life begins, when triggers emerge, when trauma is touched, when the masks slip and two people are forced to face themselves. That's when most relationships collapse. But he doesn't run from that part. He moves toward it because that's where the real work begins. That's where love either deepens or dissolves. And he's not afraid of doing that inner work. He just needs a partner who's equally willing to meet him there. He's not looking for someone who checks boxes. He's looking for someone who holds space, someone who's emotionally mature enough to hold conflict without escaping, spiritually grounded enough to embrace silence without panic, intellectually curious enough to grow, to unlearn, to question everything she was taught about love. He wants a woman who doesn't just seek romance, but alignment, someone who understands that the goal isn't to feel good all the time, it's to become better, that a relationship should be a safe space for evolution, not a comfortable escape from growth. He's not afraid of discomfort if it's honest. He's not afraid of tears if they lead to healing. He's not afraid of vulnerability if it's mutual, because he knows true love isn't found, it's built, layer by layer, day by day, brick by brick. So he doesn't chase trends. He doesn't fall for superficial beauty without inner substance. He doesn't settle for someone who just says the right things. He listens for energy, for integrity, for alignment. He's not impressed by a perfectly scripted connection. He's moved by the unscripted moments, the kind where truth spills out without fear, the kind where accountability is not a threat but a standard, the kind where emotional safety isn't earned through perfection but through presence. Because when he gives himself to someone, it's not casual, it's sacred, it's rooted in legacy, not lust, in depth, not display, in evolution, not entertainment.